I'd like to thank Dr. Potts for the honor of being asked to introduce this talk as one of John's former trainees, you might say current trainees still, I guess. It really is a pleasure to be here today and to return to San Diego to this Congress, which was the site of my first paper as a resident in 1999 down the beach at the Loews Coronado. So thank you very much, Dr. Potts. John, at the age of 3 months, probably the first time in his life where he's wondering where his boots are. This is John and his sister Jan looking through what appears to be Life magazine. I like this picture because I can say that Dr. Potts is sufficiently old that he predates the advent of disposable diapers. Life is like a box of chocolates. John would grow up to be a high school track star, and he would go to Oklahoma State University on track scholarship here with his family. Apparently, this was in the part of the 1960s where things were a little bit disturbed, and you can see that there's a demonstration of some sort happening down the street from them. This is John's fraternity photograph from 1973. I had a little trouble finding him in this picture, so I put an arrow there. You really need to see this, I think, so I did blow this up for you. I don't know if I would exactly call this a mullet yet, but the bow tie plus the mullet hairdo. I initially thought that maybe this was just a phase that John went through, but I was able to track down some other photographs from Oklahoma State. This is pensive John, an amused John. This is more the look that John would sport during the rest of his time. Went to Oklahoma University for medical school, and it was there that he became enamored with the idea of becoming a surgical resident and then a surgeon. I'm not entirely certain what the genesis of this artwork is, but it's entitled The Surgery Resident, and apparently the conception was that this would involve some sort of ninja-like activity using a meat cleaver to slaughter a bunch of possums hanging from the tree. Clearly would have appealed to a boy from Oklahoma. This is John a little bit later on after residency training and sporting the look that I got to know really, really well when I was a resident, with the standalone mustache that would be his hallmark for a number of years. I was never able to completely look at Dr. Potts without thinking of this character, Kevin Kline's character from A Fish Called Wanda, which if he had just done his hair a little bit differently, he would really have been Otto. And so when I was on the receiving end of a chewing from Dr. Potts, which happened with some regularity, generally speaking, I deserved it, I always used to think of Kevin Kline's character saying, "Don't call me stupid," and I would start giggling, actually. And this, you probably never knew this is why I did that, but when your program director is chewing on you, you really should not giggle. For those of you who are residents who are looking forward to a career in surgery, I would not recommend this as a survival tactic. This is the orange surgery team that I walked into as an intern in the late 90s. Most of you can recognize a number of these people, all of whom have made substantial contributions to the practice of surgery in this country. Dr. Frank Moody at the top, Dr. David Mercer, who you will hear speak later on this week on the left, Dr. Bruce McFadgen on the right, and there's Dr. Potts. All of these people would go on to do some significant things. Chairman, 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 and then Dr. Potts would become some other thing that nobody had ever heard of before. I like to think of Dr. Potts' current job as something like the pineal gland of surgery. Everybody knows it's important, but nobody really knows what it is that he does. Dr. Potts is an inveterate outdoorsman and likes to not only pull off the big catch, but also to look really, really good while he's doing it. And that really kind of goes through a lot of his activities. I don't have anything to add to this photograph. This is Dr. Potts trying to climb a wall. You actually have to get your feet off of the ground before you do this, John. This is John providing his tonsorial advice to the next generation of Potts. Here encouraging dress up while his daughter was attending the baseball umpiring school. Dr. Potts' lovely wife, Annie. It's not hard to see how he was able to pick her out of the crowd. She apparently comes with a gold star floating above her head. This is their wedding, which for those of you who knew Dr. Red Duke, who passed away earlier this year, this is one of the very few occasions in the 20 years that I knew him where he ever wore a suit. And I guess this must have been the occasion when it was appropriate for him to do so. Dr. Duke was actually the officiant at their wedding. John has his hands full these days, not only with directing surgical education in the country, but also with the two newest members of the family here, seen here having their first swim lesson. Not only is he creating new categories of surgical education and working in that regard, but also creating new categories of actuarial risk. We've been the first person to apply for Medicare and perinatal benefits in the same year. I'm kidding. We all know Medicare doesn't provide perinatal benefits. I can tell you from personal experience, being the father of recent twins myself, this is not an easy thing to do, to feed both infants at one time. John here making it look quite easy, and I realized that he had practice in this, and that's why he's so good at it. Practice with these two here. John has a lot on his mind these days. He's a master educator, a colleague, and a very good friend. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to introduce the 2016 President of your Congress, Dr. John Potts.